Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to set up Odoo on Ubuntu 22.04 Jammy Jellyfish for development. So I always, when I get new developers on the team, they search the web, they only find tutorials on how to install a server. The server has a different setup than the development environment. Development environment needs to be simple and easy to use and not extra secure, right? And so also, if you run a script, it's not going to help you out understanding how things are set up. And so it's important to know it. So let's get started. I'm going to do it, of course, in a separate environment because my laptop already has Odoo. So I'm going to use LXC. LXC basically is going to create a container that is exactly as my Ubuntu, and it will then give us a free server without anything that we can just spin. So I'll do LXC. Wait, I have some launch. Yeah, so this is the command. I'm going to launch Ubuntu 22.04. I'm going to call it U1. So it's spinning up the server. This is very fast. It's great for testing and other situations. And after that, I'm going to do things like if I had a new laptop. So consider this not being done in a server. It's being done on a laptop. Okay. So now I'll execute into U1. So first step is to well, before anything, I'll just create a user. Add user that matches my existing user. DD will be my user. That's the same I have on my laptop. I'll use this, and then I'm going to add to sudo group. Now I'm going to sudo dd su dd. So I'm logged in as dd, right? So if you take a look, my shell is user dd with my computer name is egap1. Here it's just I'm using a container instead of having mine because mine is already set up. Okay, so not to always add the same password when I'm doing sudo. I'll do sudo vsudo, and I'll edit the file where it says here sudo. I'll add no passwd. Okay, now we're good. So now first I'm going to update my packages, and I'll share this article with a point in my video. So updating packages. After updating the packages, I'm going to install this package, software properties common, and I'm going to add a repo that's Nginx. That's where Python 3.8 is, because this Jammy Jellyfish doesn't have Python 3.8. We have to install it. That is what Odoo currently is using. I take it as a reference. If you take a look into Odoo SH, it's using Python 3.8 and Ubuntu 20.04 at this point. Okay, so if I'm going to set up a server, I would not recommend you at this stage to use Ubuntu 22 because it's a server and you might run into other issues. So I would be a bit more conservative. Spinning a server, I would use 20.04 instead of 22. But for development, because it's already stable since April, we don't want to change constantly our operating system. So I'm going to start with this one. So now, yeah, so I did this correct. Yeah, so now I'll install some dynamic libraries we need for compiling the Python libraries. And not only, wait, it's a problem, what's happened? Yeah, no, probably I haven't done this yet. Let's see. I thought I did it. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, this. Paste without installing the that snakes repo, we are not able to find a package that provides us Python 3.8. Okay, now we are good. So now I'm going to install these libraries. And if you want to understand more what libraries you need, you can take a look into the Debian folder inside the GitHub for Odoo and has some dependencies on packages. There's lots more than I have here, but since they already exist on this machine, I just took it out. So it's installing that. Now, of course, our next step will be cloning Odoo. We'll use git clone. We'll specify branch 15 because this is the current LTS available. I'm going to use depth equals 1. Something like this happens, just press enter. Just take the default always. And then I'm going to clone it at git. This means home folder. My home folder here is pwd /homeDD. So I'm going to clone it inside this folder. Okay. This also takes some time. So let's, and using depth equals 1, it's going to make it faster. It's a shallow clone. And if you have, like me, maybe at this point 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, yeah, you have 6 versions, so 6 gigabytes you'll need for that, right? And on the projects, I just do symlinks, so I don't have to have one Odoo in each server. I'm just showing how to set up the community edition. If you need to set up the community, the enterprise edition, and probably will. Nowadays, I work more with enterprise than community. You just need to add the enterprise repo to here to Git and then specify it as an add-on spef. So now it's cloned. Next step, I'm going to install a virtual environment with Python 3.8. If you see, if I do Python 3 version, you see I have Python 3.10.04 as a default. So if I want to use Python 3.8 with that link, I'll do this. I'll install default Python is 3.8. And now if I do the same thing, well, first I need to activate the virtual environment. So I created one, doesn't have anything. Doing this, it's activated. Now if I do the Python version check, you'll see I have Python 3.8, 13. Now we will install the requirements text. This is just a file where you have all the libraries you need for running Odoo. So if you just cut this, you'll see lots of Python libraries. So if I just do pip install, it's going to install all those libraries for me. Think that those requirements are going to install them, and some of them will compile them. So it might take a bit of time. I don't think there is any error here, but if it shows, I'll for now I'll just stop and then I'll continue if there's an error so that I can explain how to find it. Okay, just finished, so no errors. I think those libraries that I installed were enough. But if you get one error here, just take a careful look into the stack trace. It will tell you what C library is missing. Then you can find it on Ubuntu package list and use sudo apt to install it. Problem solved. Okay. So now we have everything we need to run Odoo, but running Odoo without Postgres, it's really not possible, right? Anyway, let's first check Odoo is running. So let's just do a small thing. It will be just use the version and Odoo will say Odoo version 15. So that seems to be working. Now let's install Postgres. We'll install Postgres and then we'll create, first install PostgreSQL. Then we will create a user with the name of our current user so that it can connect as a super user to Postgres. So I'm using DD as a user and DD needs to be able to access Postgres so that I can easily develop things, create, delete databases, do whatever I need without switching into Postgres. So if I do PSQL now, uh, ls, it says error connection. Role dd does not exist, right? That's what we need to change. If I do sudo su Postgres and I do PSQL ls PSQL, it really has access, right? So I'm switching back to user one, and then I'm going to create my super user. I can use this command, or I can do just as I did before, sudo su Postgres, and I'll create users with super user and dd. That's the name of the user. Since you are using Linux, it's going to use Unix sockets to connect to the database. So right now, if I do this PSQL -ls as dd, it will do exactly the same thing. So I can create db test Diogo. Again, I'll do -ls. There you go. Here is the db. I can drop that db. I can do anything with my user, right? And that's handy if you're doing development. If you're setting up a server, you should have one limited user, not with super user, of course, with limited roles to access the database of the server per instance, so that you completely isolate it. Now, yeah, let's create a new database and use test data and install the CRM just for checking everything is working fine. And there you go. And right afterwards, we have installed Postgres. We are able from my own user to connect to Postgres. That's fine. Now we need to install WKHTML2PDF. There is a component that runs on the shell that produces HTML. It translates HTML to PDF that produces the reports, right? So I already got here the package for Jammy and 64 architecture as a zip. And then I'm going to use 7-zip that I installed before to extract it. And afterwards, I'm going to install this file, which will be the result, this Debian file, to install it. And then it's always missing something, so you need to do this fix broken. And so this is the first step. Let's wait for the database to finalize. Okay, now let's get that file. Let's extract that zip. Oh, probably I didn't add that, so just missing. So now we'll extract that zip. Yes, always the same. Default is fine. Now we'll extract that. We extracted it. Now we will install. There's a Debian file somewhere here. This one. So let's sudo deep package dpkj -e install it. It's going to throw an error, but then we are going to fix it with this command. We have some dependency issue. If you just do this, we will be fine. It will solve the dependency issue for us. Now, after that, let's test WKHTML2PDF. It has to be 12.5. Don't use the latest version. Always 12.5. That's the recommended one. So WKHTML2PDF HTML2 PDF version, just to make sure it's working. Yes. Okay, now we need Node. I always install Node using NVM. It's the best approach because I also use Front, for example. And let's activate it. He has created this on bash rc, so we just need to activate. I'm using Ubuntu, not Ubuntu. This will be dd. I'll change here later. nvm install 14. This is where we are going to install Node. We're going to use Node version manager to install Node 14. This is what I need for Bootstrap frontend. It works with Odoo. And then we are going to install globally these CSS, PostCSS, RTL libraries that are needed. For example, if you have an RTL project that could be Hebrew, Arabic, lots of languages use RTL, right, left. And so, good to go. We have everything we need. Now, doing development, you will need to test things not only with workers equals 1, but with workers equals more than 1, which is going to activate the long pull import. And for doing that, you'll need Nginx. So I use Nginx on my local to test things. So if I do sudo apt and install Nginx, then this reload is something you'll need after. First, we need to make sure that this file here has that content below. So sudo nano this file, and let's take out everything you see here. Now let's copy what you hear here. I'll explain later. So this is the proxy commands, paste. And now, yes, we need to reload it. And this is service. Okay, now it's reloaded. And okay, I got it. The right command was here. And now we are good to go. So if I do, this is my local now. If I do lxc ls, and this is the IP address we are using. Okay, so if I go into this IP address, I can do this. You see, we have Nginx here, but it's just giving nothing because by default this is not going to spin anything. So if I do sudo reboot, sudo, there you go. Okay, I didn't land. Okay, I was out. Yeah. Now I'll enter again with dd, but well, it has not restarted Odoo. That's what I wanted to say. It means that as we are doing our work, we will need to stop the server, update modules. So this command, I'm going to run Odoo with workers equals 3. It means if you have just one, it is not going to open the long pulling port. Long pulling port is this one here, 8072. So this is only going to work if I'm using, oh wait, we still have, yeah, we need to activate, always activate the virtual environment. This is just going to work 8069 and 8072, you see, and this is being piped through Nginx. So if I do this, it's going to show me the server. First time it runs, it takes a bit. Admin. Okay. There you go. So it's going to show me the server, and you will see from time to time on the log that the long pull import will be, I think it's every 10 seconds, or it's going to ping back to the server. So we'll see a call, see here on one, long pulling, right? That is used for the chat app. This is a cron running. I don't see any long pulling, but if you, I think if I trigger something here, like chat with some other user demo, it is triggering the long pulling, right? And I can say hello, it's through the long pulling port. So if I stop this, and now I'll just use workers 1 or 0, it's not going to start the long pulling port. No, this one is starting. So you have to take out the workers. Yeah, workers 0, just 8069. And if I go here, it's not going to work out. It's not going to call the long pulling port ever. And sometimes you see a message, an error message coming here saying long pulling bus not available. So if you want to test things exactly as in the production server, you should be as close as possible as production environment, of course. So for that to happen, I always recommend you to use at least workers 2 or 3. Okay. This calculation of workers, it depends on the size of the server. So usually if you have a server with 4 core and you just have it for Odoo, you will use 4 times 2, 8 plus 1 for recycling. You would start with workers equals 9. That's the production server setup. For development, you don't need it. You just use 1 or 2 and it's enough. So what matters is that the long pulling port is active. Okay, and you see it immediately when you start. These are the add-ons path that is being used. Also, if you want to point Odoo to a different configuration folder, you can use a file called Odoo.rc. So if I do export Odoo.rc equals, E as a default for Odoo.rc, and I'll say it is odoo.conf, and it's on my folder, home dd odoo.conf. I can do this. Now if I do this and let's say I'm going to say -s, that will start the server and will save the file, and it's going to say configuration file, using configuration file at this place, because I passed this Odoo.rc. This is if you want, you can also pass the file directly with -c on the command line. So you can do this, this was just for saving, -c, and then point it to the configuration file, or you can just not use a configuration file, which I usually do. I just put everything on the command line, because if I want to change it, I do it fast. If you want to update some module, you'll just do -u, and even you don't need to use workers, so you can use no HTTP. This is not going to trigger any HTTP. And also max, if it is something that takes long, max cron threads 0. So that is not triggering the cron while you're doing the update. CRM, I only have the CRM here. And also let's pass a stop after init, meaning after you've done updating, you can stop the daemon. It's not a daemon, it's just a command that is running. So it's doing update all things. It's not going to trigger cron. Sometimes when you're updating, triggering cron will create lock issues. Also, another thing we can do is, yeah, no HTTP also, but you can use this with a shell. And you can use the shell directly to understand what's happening for any, so you can do a env, for example, sale order. This has demo data dot browse one dot read and get browse. Not know where this is coming from. Should I use self? Yeah, I don't have. No, it's CRM. Since it is the CRM module, doesn't have sale order sale. So let's use crm.lead. It means that since I didn't install the sale module, I will not have the sale order accessible. Read, let's do a read. So if you want to understand something, this is what is. Or you can just use one field. So you want to know this one, email normalized. It's going to print whatever you want, just for inspection while you're coding. And that's all for now. So don't forget, this is a development environment setup. It's not for a server. And hope you liked it. And thanks.